Good morning again. All our panelists are in now. I will just give everyone exactly 2 minutes to just settle in and make themselves comfortable and ensure that you don't have any disturbances behind you or in front of you, so we can have a highly interactive session. So I'll just give you a minute or two and then we can get started. We can get started. Hello, everyone, and good morning. My name is Chumama Nyirenda, and I'm going to be your moderator today on the topic of discussion, promoting livestock fisheries during COVID time. Personally, and I can say on behalf of my team, despite everything that is going on in our country and globally, of course, I'm very excited to be here. I'm excited about a useful discussion we're about to have today, and excited about the momentous upcoming event, the Meet the Farmers Virtual Summit, taking place later this month on the 25th to the 27th of August. This is an online agricultural event connecting you, the farmers, to your suppliers and linking them to their markets and buyers. You agree with me that in the absence of the agricultural show, the Agri-Tech in Chisamba, as well as the trade fair in Dola, we seem to have lost an interface with the agricultural sector. Therefore, this discussion we're having today and the virtual summit to come later in the month have become a relevant and very useful platform than ever before. This is so that we can, of course, maintain the interface with the sector, that we can still interact with each other, share ideas, meet suppliers and buyers, do business, and ultimately cushion the impact of the pandemic on our economy. Today, I'm pleased to welcome my panel of guests, a very exciting panel lineup. I'll start by introducing a man who doesn't need introduction at all, Mr. Fisher Mwale, an entrepreneur and civic leader. Mr. Mwale, please say hi.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show.
We are also joined by Mr. Kennedy Mulenga, the Deputy Director, Fisheries and Livestock Marketing at the Ministry of Fisheries and Livestock. Mr. Mlenga.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks for having me on this show. I'm sure it's going to be a very exciting show.
Indeed, we're looking forward to your input. We're also joined by Dr. Paul Fandamu. He is the Deputy Director at the Ministry of Fisheries and Livestock and in the Research and Epidemiology. Dr. Fandamu.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me.
We welcome you. Last but not least, Dr. Alexander Kefi is Acting Deputy Director, Aquaculture and Project Coordinator. Dr. Kefi. Whilst we're waiting for Dr. Kefi to come back online, I would also like to introduce Mr. Aaron Banda, who is the production controller at Hybrid Poultry Farm. Good morning, Mr. Banda.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the show, and hope it will be very interactive. Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Today, they will be sharing their experience and expertise, and we can pick their brains as they tackle the topic, promoting livestock and fisheries during COVID times. You agree with me that COVID represents a unique emergency and a serious social threat. However, protecting public health should be our #1 priority, and I believe it is. However, government, policymakers, and stakeholders must also recognize and mitigate the negative impact of the pandemic on the key sectors such as livestock and fisheries, simply because they contribute significantly to food security, nutrition, and livelihoods. Current observations reveal obstructions to the livestock and fisheries value chain, namely production, processing, transport, sales, and of course, consumption. But my panel of experts is about to delve deeper into that. And therefore, you allow me to introduce our first discussant, who was the only man to welcome me to the panel. So we'll give Mr. Fisher Male the first opportunity to make a presentation on our topic of discussion. Mr. Male, welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nyirenda, and to my fellow participants and contributors, welcome, and it's a pleasure being amongst you, especially people like Dr. Kefi, who are the foremost specialists in this sector of ours. I think as a way of introduction, I can talk from two perspectives. Can you hear me? Am I clear?
Yes.
You're very clear, Mr. Male.
Yeah, from two perspectives, I want to share. First of all, I think from the perspective of a company like Yalelo, and therefore I'll be talking about the aquaculture sector. And then I'll also touch a bit on the capture fisheries, but this is because I'm wearing two hats. One as an investor in the aquaculture sector by way of Yalelo, one of the biggest fish farming enterprises in sub-Saharan Africa. And then the other hat I'm wearing is as the chairman of the Aquaculture Development Association of Zambia. So I will encompass my discussion, including the capture fisheries. So from a private sector perspective, I think what we have generally observed have been the changes in the aquaculture production during COVID. Of course, we have been negatively impacted, just like any other sector, but the changes that we have noted significantly in the input production, supply, and actual table fish production are as follows. The fish production has been affected by increasing cost of production inputs, obviously, due to lockdown, and which has directly affected the means of production. The closure of borders and lockdown of fishing equipment and net manufacturing and other inputs have made materials scarce and more expensive. Then you have the aspect of the increase in exchange rates during COVID, which has affected, once again, the cost of inputs and equipment in the aquaculture sector. Significantly, there has been a marked change in pricing and, of course, in consumption, because if people have been in lockdown, their incomes have been affected, and therefore, even the way that they buy or purchase fish has drastically reduced. So for a producer who used to produce and provide certain quantities on the market, one has to scale down on the production, because, as you know, fish is very sensitive in terms of storage, in terms of handling, and therefore the producer actually has added expenses in terms of how they handle, how they store, and how they distribute on the market. So the reduction in the purchasing levels have greatly affected the profit levels. This invariably has affected employment, income, and nutrition levels, not only among the population, but also the aquapreneurs. So many aquaculture companies have laid off workers, scaled down production, and of course, we are noticing a decrease in the nutrition levels due to low consumption of fish, and the income levels have gone down. Then let me quickly go to the capture fisheries. Capture fisheries probably have also been drastically affected. I think Dr. Kefi will also maybe highlight, but the fish catches have declined due to a reduction in the number of people fishing. The closure of borders equally and the lockdown has affected the supply of nets, etc. So you invariably will even see an environmental impact, in the sense that people might start reverting back to the old forms of fishing methodologies, which have a negative impact on the environment. Enforcement regulations have been weakened. The officers who patrol and so on, everyone has been affected. So where are we in terms of the aquaculture sector? Where are we in terms of the fisheries? I think that we are in a difficult period, but during the course of the discussion, I'll share with you some of the mitigatory measures and strategies that we have taken. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mwale. Still had a few minutes allocated to you, so maybe I would like to ask you to explain more about maybe our worst fear being the environmental impact that you mentioned due to the use of illegal fishing that could come about as a result of less supplies and inputs.
Yes, I think the COVID pandemic couldn't have come at a worse time. It's impact does climatic change have on our environment, in particular on our water resources? Obviously, you encounter a lot of flooding, you encounter a lot of depreciation in the quality of the water, and if there is less water in the natural water bodies, it means that even the breeding of fish, even the volume of fish available is negative. So we were already dealing with issues of the impact of climatic change. And then in addition, we start having the COVID epidemic, which I think has even worsened the situation and even compromise the mitigatory efforts that are being put in place. One now is first, do we deal with the impact of COVID, or are we going to deal with the issues of the climatic change? So there has to be a reset. We have to go back to the drawing board, and I think start putting in place other effective mitigatory measures which would take into account some of these threats to the livelihood of not only the capture fisheries, but also the aquaculture sector.
Just another thing that you touched on quickly with regards to employment and income. How is Yalolo being affected? Have you maintained your workforce? How much have you carried by, and how is your business being affected?
Well, I think this sometimes, I think the type of planning you put in place has a way of cushioning some of these effects. I think that our management had a lot of foresight, and we reacted very quickly. I think we carried on some of the plans which we had put in place to mitigate against the impact of climatic change, which had affected us on the Lake Kariba. As you know, the lake was shrinking and so on. So you had to start investing in terms of how you started extracting or harvesting the fish, how you started moving, transporting, etc. So we were probably in a stage where we were putting certain measures in place. So when we were faced with the COVID aspect, we merely broadened and strategically reacted. I'm just trying to underline that we've not had any occasion where we've had to reduce our labor. I think that Dr. Kefi will bear witness here that Yalelo probably had one of the most advanced reactions to the impact of disease, where we even went to the extent of holding workshops and so on. But what I'm saying is that that reaction at that time probably broadened our approach in terms of looking at different strategies to mitigate the impact of not only disease, climate change, but also the market. So I guess we were fortunate to be well suited and well equipped. And our workforce, I think, has been very proactive. The market itself, we are in a slightly advantageous position because we continued our production levels. Well, most of the competitors are actually, for lack of a better term, going into liquidation. So the market, as it shrinks,
which has been a trend across a lot of other industries, I can imagine.
Yes.
Please stay with us. I have a lot of questions for you coming from our audience, but thank you very much for your input. Next on stage, so to speak, I would like to introduce Mr. Kennedy Mulenga, who is the Deputy Director, Fisheries and Livestock Marketing, to give us a small presentation on our subject today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. In the first place, I want to say that my director is supposed to have been here, so I'm actually representing him, though the invitation came at short notice. From marketing point of view, we are at the end of the value chain. You can imagine the value chain stretches from research, production, transportation, processing, export, and of course, consumption at the end of it all. But as for marketing, we are glad that we are also part of the value chain. However, in this presentation, I'm actually going to talk about how COVID has actually brought about some changes in the way we do things, especially in the department. My presentation basically is going to focus on the international trade, which we facilitate as the department. What we've noted from the time the COVID started is actually the reduction in the volume of trade that we have at regional, sub-regional, and international level. We've noted that in view of the pandemic, there's been tremendous reduction in the issuance of the import and export permits. On average, especially last year, we were issuing imports up to as much as an average of 112 permits daily. But unfortunately, during the first quarter of the 2020 and the part of the second quarter, we went as far as 8 permits per day, you can imagine. It was unfortunate that Yalelo, for example, which had the contractual obligations, maybe in East Africa to fulfill, we are not able to, because that's the time the borders actually closed, especially with our neighboring countries, especially Tanzania, at the height of the pandemic. We've also noted that from the time COVID came, we have actually posted a very big reduction in terms of non-tax revenue collection. As I said in the first place, that we are mandated as the department to collect revenue, non-tax revenue for import and exports. So the revenue generation, because of cancellation of exports, cancellation of imports by the private sector, we were unable actually to collect as much as we do. However, we have noted that when the new normal started, I think things have actually started changing somehow. It is not as bad as it used to, but we can still do better. Now, on the local prices, we've noticed that most of the chain stores, if you've noted actually, for those that have been in chain stores around, because of restriction in terms of imports and the cancellation of some imports, the supply on the local market has actually gone down, especially things that we normally import, things like tilapia from China, from Namibia, some dairy products from South Africa, some meat products, selected meat products, especially for hotel industries. Most of these are not in the shops. Why? Because we are somehow import dependent. And this is the dimension we have to take advantage of, because we will not actually continue importing. I'm sure somebody will be excited to hear that the COVID may also bring about some opportunities that we can take advantage of, that will rely on imports. I'm sure the panel will actually agree with me that even the head of state actually bemoaned why some chain stores cannot take, some farmers, small scale farmers especially, working with the chain stores cannot take advantage of this situation. Otherwise, my submission, but however, coming in for other things. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mlanga, thank you very much. I'll pick up a few questions actually as we go that are coming in from the audience and present them to you. I have Mr. Andy Hachipola from MFLOC asking the question, what is government doing to incorporate ICTs in livestock production? And I can understand the relevance of the question with regards to ICTs because of the times that we're faced with technology and the farmer. What is government doing about that?
Is that meant for me?
Yes, that's meant for you, Mr.
Okay, I'm sure my colleague Dr.
Online.
Fandam will be able to come in since he's, I mean, we have an officer from Livestock. Otherwise, I'm going to take up questions that are related to marketing.
All right. Okay, fair enough. You did mention that the chain stores have been largely affected, but of course, this now presents an opportunity in the market. Are you able to expand on that, the kind of opportunities that the farmers out there that are listening can take advantage of?
Exactly. Well, government has been promoting cooperatives, for example, from 1990s. And this is where our small scale farmers have to come together and actually bulk their products. However, the challenge that we have among our small scale farmers is the inconsistency in terms of supply. The chain stores want to have a permanent contract. For example, if you are able to be contracted and supply, say, for the next 6 months consistently without breakages, well and good. However, we have to have this change of mindset among our small scale farmers because normally they want to work in isolation. And in terms of coming up with volumes, then becomes a challenge to them. But if they came together through their cooperative so that they are able to meet the volumes that the chain stores want, fair enough for them. And also, there's need not to have a business as usual. You know, farming is supposed to be seen as a business. And as such, our farmers, they have to be commercially oriented in terms of marketing. They should not just be selling what they are good at in terms of farming or production. They should sell what the market wants. And this is an opportunity for our small scale farmers, our traders. Because of this pandemic, it has also brought about supply challenges. And this is where they have to come in and fill up the gap. For example, those that are able to do maybe vegetable garden, for example, those who are able to produce eggs and they are able to bulk them and then supply large volumes to the supermarkets. This is the advantage they have to take. I mean, this is the opportunity they have to take advantage of, because I can assure you, COVID will be with us for some time to come, and we have to change the way we do things.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Mlenga. We appreciate your input, and please stay with us as we'll have more questions coming in from the audience. I would like to introduce our next panelist, Dr. Alexander Kefi, who is Acting Deputy Director for Aquaculture and Project Coordinator. Dr. Kefi, it's your floor.
Yeah, thank you very much, and our audience. I've said on what we can do in this period of COVID-19. So as my colleagues have hello? Are you able to get me?
Dr. Kefi, you may carry on. We can get you, yes. Please carry on.
Okay. Yeah, I'm saying I'm just going to build on what my colleagues have mentioned. COVID is here with us, but we have to continue, producing fish for the people. And as my colleagues have mentioned, that we need to take advantage. We need to take this as an opportunity for us to produce more. First and foremost, I'd like to inform you that indeed aquaculture has been progressing over the past 2 decades, from 4,500 metric tons of fish to around now 38,800 tons of fish. Now, what does this entail? This is because we're taking advantage of the resource that Zambia has. 20% of Zambia is actual water, 15 million hectares of water, 8 million hectares of wetlands. All these are resources that we can take, and produce more fish. I can tell you that in terms of the fish Zambia's got at the moment, the deficit is around 87,000 metric tons. And we are importing a lot of fish to supply Zambia. In the last year, Zambia imported around 95,000 metric tons of fish, valued at almost 114 million US dollars. We don't expect the same because of COVID. And remember, most of the fish that also comes from outside our borders is also again going outside informally, mainly to the Democratic Republic of Congo. Actually, Zambia takes around 100,000 metric tons of fish. What is imported officially is informally again exported mainly to the Democratic Republic of Congo. So these are the markets that we have to take. First of all, domestic deficit, 87,000 across 100,000 metric tons. So these are areas where we have to go, produce more fish, feed Zambians, and then feed the region. We have 8 countries that surround us, are all depending on Zambia. The feed inputs that we are producing, for example, fish feeds, they are going around, into all these other countries that are surrounding us. We are aware that because of this COVID, as Mr. Mwale mentioned, the prices of the fish, the price of the fish has gone up. This is not good for the consumer, but it's good for the farmer. Why? It's because the supply. It's because of the supply and demand. Because now we are not importing a lot of fish. So we should take this as an opportunity for us to produce more fish. And as government, we are really taking advantage of the value chain, as my colleague Mr. Mlenga mentioned, because we need to develop the industry which is anchored on the value chain development. Because fixing one area does not fix the other area. For example, if we concentrate only on production, we may overproduce. So we need to also improve the marketing side. And this is why we are now going forward to make sure we work with our colleagues in the Department of Marketing, that we have to take advantage of this regional, regional markets that are there, especially in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And remember, the population keeps on increasing. Every year, Zambia is, the human population is increasing by 3%. So meaning that we need to continue improving our, increasing our production to meet the ever increasing, population of Zambians. So the onus is on the farmers. The strategies, I think government has already put them that, we are able to see now vividly that actually a lot of people are coming to aquaculture because capture fisheries will never see any serious improvement in there. We are just sustaining it. We are just managing. At the moment, it's managing what we already have. Lake Kariba will never expand, but the population of Zambia will be expanding. Lake Tanganyika will never expand, but the population of Zambia will be expanding. So we don't expect increase in there. In fact, we expect reduction in capture fisheries because of climate change, as Mr. Mwale talked about. For only information, like Lake Pangweuro, the water levels has been increasing, has reduced in the last 30 years by 0.6 meters. So what does it mean? It means that the volume of water to keep the same amount of fish that it used to keep 30 years ago is not there. So how are we going to improve that? Is to divert, is for us to go into aquaculture. And I'm glad, I'm saying this, I'm glad, very proud, because a lot of Zambians have gone into fish farming. Thanks to people like Fisho Mware who took their own buy-in. At that time, it was very difficult for people to go into aquaculture, especially fish farming in the cages. But they managed to go in there, and everyone now is talking about aquaculture. And this is what we want to bring in the minds of the people. As Mr. Mrenga mentioned, farmers who abandon aquaculture if they will not make money. And I mentioned this. The prices of fish are at the moment are going up. It is good for the farmer. Of course, it is not good for the consumer. It's not good for the consumer, but it's good for the farmer. At one point, there will be an equilibrium where everyone will be happy. And as we've talked about, we don't expect this thing to change anytime soon. The Zambians must produce fish to feed themselves, not anyone else.
Dr. Kefi, there is a question from you from Susanna Piri. And I'll quote, Dr. Kefi, interesting to note that there is a difference between aquaculture and fisheries. Please reiterate that when you get the chance. And I guess this is your chance.
Okay, thank you very much. The difference is basically we're talking about capture fisheries and aquaculture. Aquaculture is basically farming of fish. So you can farm fish within the lake, like in the cages. That is also aquaculture. But wild catching of fish, like for example, you go in the river, you are catching using the net there. That is what we call capture fisheries. Aquaculture is simply farming of fish. Aqua, water, culture, growing. So basically, aquaculture is farming of fish. And any other, aquatic organism, yes.
Thank you very much. I think that's loud and clear. We'll get back to you at the end during the formal Q&A session. I just wanted to fill up your 8 minutes, which is up now. And next, introduce Mr. Aaron Banda, who is the production controller at Hybrid Poultry Farm. Welcome once again, Mr. Banda.
Thank you, moderator. Good morning, everyone. As already introduced, my name is Aaron Banda. I look after the breeding side of the business for Hybrid. As you know, Hybrid has been one of those companies that have been existing in this country for a long time. We're almost clocking 60 years now. I think it's older than me. The point of discussion today, we are all affected with the emergence of COVID in our regions and the rest of the world. As you know, the poultry industry around about 2007 was hit by a similar virus outbreak, which was the avian flu. At that particular time, we all thought that perhaps that was the end of the poultry industry in the world. But we did survive, and through several interventions that were put in place by all poultry operations in the world. Coming to how the operations have been affected with the COVID. As you know, we work as a multiplier company, and as I mentioned, it's a breeding company. We do bring in breeding stock from across the world, and from this, we apply the multiplier effect, and we produce the products that we offload on the market. We did, before the COVID times came through sometime last year, because we did not record enough maize into this country, the industry was affected by the feed prices because the maize was not enough. In this particular instance, when you have such particular deficit in terms of maize, which is a major input in the feed, major emphasis is actually looked at to
Mr. Banda, we're just losing you. for a moment there. Maybe you can just adjust your settings with the internet or your phone, and then we can continue. Dr. Kefi, I would like to come back to you whilst we wait for Mr. Banda to come back.
Sorry.
Banda, are you back?
Yes, I'm back. Sorry about
Okay,
that.
brilliant. Please
Right.
carry on. We've lost you. Maybe you can just pick it up from the last subject you are addressing.
Right. So I was addressing the fact that the cost of production was much higher than what the farmers could actually sell the chickens for. So if, for instance, your cost of production was coming to around about 45 kwacha to sell one broiler, it means you have to sell it more than 45 kwacha. So the feed price is actually pushed up most of our customers out. So came 2020, then the COVID, there was an outbreak, and this added the injury to already existing wound. Most of the farmers could actually not access feed because there was a lot of uncertainties. Not until several mitigation measures were put in place, and most customers would actually feel satisfied that once they put the chicks on the floor, they will be able to get feed, because there was a lot of uncertainty whether it will be locked down or whether it will not be locked down. So
Mr. Banda will pick it up again in a few minutes, but we still have a few more minutes under your segment. In the meantime, maybe we can ask Dr. Kefi once again to address a question from the audience. And this is with regards to production of fisheries production, if it's going to be sufficient to cover the demand in 2021. And this question is coming from Emmanuel Kalenga.
Thank you very much for that important question. Aquaculture production, as I mentioned, we are at 38,800 metric tons of fish from aquaculture. From capture fisheries, we are producing around 91,000 metric tons of fish. Our requirement at the moment is around 204,000 metric tons. And that's why I'm always talking about that we have about a deficit of 87,000 metric tons. So meaning that if we have to meet the domestic demand, it means we have to produce an extra 87,000 metric tons of fish. And this is a call to the farmers that you have got a market at the moment for you to satisfy the Zambians. Apart from that, you have got another external demand of in excess of 100,000 metric tons of fish. And if you go to Kasumbalesa at the moment, you find a lot of informal trading. And I would love that the people selling the fish there, I'd rather see a situation where Zambians are aggregating the fish and selling the fish, and not the imported fish destroying our roads.
Thank you, Dr. Kefi.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think that was, we have a deficit of 87,000 metric tons, and that needs to be fulfilled in 2021. Mr. Banda, I'll allow you 2 minutes just to sum up your presentation before we move on to Dr. Fandamu on the last presentation, and then we'll address all the Q&As. Mr. Banda, back to you.
Thank you very much, moderator. Yeah, so I was just saying that the poultry industry was also affected by the fact that, first of all, there was no freight coming into the country, and then secondly, those that were able to bring poultry products into the country, there were some restrictions imposed on those. So that still kept the feed prices going, and the feed prices were still sitting on the higher side. So as an organization, and indeed many other poultry players in the country, we looked at what was the product portfolio that was existing in the country at that time. And we realized that we needed to go back to our roots, back to our villages, and looked at the chickens that we have in the village. If we all, I'm sure all of us would have seen that most of our chickens in the village just scrounge around and pick up whatever necessities and the nutritional value that they require. So in terms of the nutritional requirements of those chickens, it tends to be much, much lower, because their ability to convert food into meat is also on the lower side. So most of the poultry players in the country opted to promote a product, which I think most of our participants would have come across now, the exotic breeds, or should I just put it in plain terms as village chicken. So those birds have actually come onto the market barely because the feed prices have kept going up, and that its nutritional requirements are much lower, and it doesn't eat as much as the rest of the breeds. This product has been, I think, introduced in the country sometime beginning of last year, actually before the COVID came through. And because of its performance and because of its ability to withstand the effects down into our villages and the simplicity of management, we have tended to see some grip and growth on this particular strain. So in the COVID times, I think it's something that can still work in addition to the fish, that it still be able to provide protein to our masses there. Thank you very much, Mr. Banda.
Thank you very much, Mr. Banda. Dr. Paul Fandamu would like to give you the last but not least opportunity to make your submission. And after that, we'll open the floor up to our audience, who are very active indeed, I must say. And there are a lot of questions for you to come. Dr. Fandamu, over to you.
Thank you so much, moderator. I think first and foremost, I would like to say our director was supposed to be on this panel, but at short notice, I think he was called for another important meeting. And moderator, maybe you can allow me to, I was joined in by another colleague of mine from animal production. I think he was unable to connect. I don't know if you are going to allow him to say something after me. I don't know, because he couldn't connect from his computer in the other office. Yeah. Let me just say something on the.
Sorry, Doctor, just to get back to you quickly on that. Is he in the office with you right now?
It's with me right now.
Maybe he can share the screen with you when you're done. If he can quickly give us his input, we'll be happy to have him on board.
Okay. All right. So I think on the promotion of livestock and fisheries in terms of COVID, I'm speaking in respect to animal production and health, and I'll touch a bit on public health. I think because our department, that's where we are concerned. It's the issues of animal health, animal production, and also public health. Allow me to to just say something on the COVID-19 and its relation with animals. The current evidence on COVID-19 suggests that the COVID-19 virus emerged from an animal source. And investigations are still underway to find out the actual source, including the species which is involved. I want to talk about this because I think we need to know the relationship between COVID-19 and animals and livestock, and probably how do we handle it in the event of the COVID-19. The potential role of animal reservoirs is not yet very clear. However, to date, there's no enough evidence to identify the source and to explain the origin of the transmission of the virus. But what could be the risk of COVID-19 from animals? Are there any risks? The coronavirus, which is responsible for this current pandemic, is generally thought to be spread from person to person through respiratory droplets, as people know. And to date, there's no evidence that companion animals or livestock can spread the disease. I think that should be very clear to people so that we understand how do we come in when we are allowing maybe animal movements and the livestock and other pets. And currently there's no evidence that domestic animals play a role in the spread of this human disease. But what about the risk of importing livestock to COVID-19? Again, based on current available evidence and the information from the International Organization for Animal Health, the OIE, which recommends that the trade restrictions on animal and animal byproducts are not recommended. So I think we should understand that although people say maybe animals could be involved in the transmission, we know the virus, the origin is from the bat, but there hasn't been enough evidence yet to find out the transmission pattern or what caused that to jump into humans. So the risk from importation of livestock and livestock products is quite very minimal, and people should understand that. But what are the impacts? There have been a lot of impacts on the animal production and the health. And in most cases, the impacts have been in the availability of inputs like feed, inputs like veterinary drugs, inputs like vaccines, because of the restrictions which have been imposed from the countries of origin where these drugs or feeds or feed premixes are imported. The ministry and the department in general has put up a number of mitigation measures just to promote livestock and fisheries production in these times of COVID. And one of the mitigation measure is the facilitation of the importation of essential animal drugs and vaccines. This actually the department, together with the Department of Marketing, has prioritized so that people are not very much affected. So we are able to facilitate the importation of essential animal drugs and vaccines. We are also able to facilitate the importation of essential inputs in the fisheries and livestock value chains, like feed and other premixes. I think you may be aware that of late, I think there's been issues of importation of premixes and the drugs. I think currently, I think that's why there's a meeting right now going on with the minister regarding the facilitation of the issues of premixes into the country to facilitate the production of fisheries and the livestock. And there's also facilitation of importation of essential products. I think there hasn't been a ban There hasn't been a ban in the importation of products, essential products, especially animal products or fisheries products. The department is quite involved in that together with the marketing. So those are some of the mitigation measures which are being put in place to facilitate the production or promotion of the livestock and fisheries production. Moderator, I think I'll wait for any queries, especially with regard to animal health and animal production from the queries which might come up. I think those are the most important things I wanted to mention about the risk of importation of livestock or foods of animal origin into the country, where we are and what measures we're putting in place. Maybe I can share the screen if you can allow me with a colleague from animal production.
I'll let my technical director allow you to share the screen.
Okay.
You may. All right, okay. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Now midday. Won't give you much time, but would like to have your input on the topic at hand, which is promotion of livestock and fisheries during COVID times. You may start by introducing yourself, of course, and what you do at the ministry.
Thank you very much. I'm actually standing in place also of my director, Dr. Kawoma, who apparently had some appointment, or he has been called by the minister at a short notice. My name is Vincent Smongwe. I'm Chief Livestock Production Officer. So basically I'm responsible for issues of livestock production, livestock management, and so forth.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so probably like I've mentioned, I just have to say a few things. There has been an effect. First of all, just on staff interactions to plan programs, we are now pushed to, programs such as doing Zoom meetings and so forth, and also probably appearing a few times in a week instead of working on the usual daily programs. Yeah, so what I can say on the livestock aspect, on the production, we are supposed to give extension services to staff, to farmers. This has been very much affected. You think of also farmer to farmer interaction, where farmers can share information, make visits to different farms. They cannot do that anymore. The big programs of the National Agriculture, Commercial and Agricultural shows, and also field days that we normally have, we have not seen them coming up this year. All these are sources of information, sharing information. We see these things not happening now. We also have some research stations that have had some on-farm programs to do some research on farms and see how things can work on farms, whatever they found on the research stations. This has been impacted on very, very negatively. Inputs also for research activities, like other people have talked about, they are not easily available. And we've seen products actually going up in price. Things like chickens, I think somebody has talked of that already. And also feed ingredients, most of the imported things are limited and also they are more expensive, which in one way could be benefits, like for my colleague from marketing mentioned, they are a benefit to the seller, but they are also to the consumer quite, it's a drawback. So what we've done basically, we're trying to work out on e-extension, but you know that connectivity is not so much, easy everywhere. Some farmers don't have phones, others are not easily able to connect. But with the limited connection that are there, some farmers have been put on farmer registers with their numbers, so some of the information can be passed across by e-extension. We've also seen farmers coming together, let me say, members of cooperatives coming together and proposing to establish processing plants, because they've seen that products like for milk products that are imported are getting to be limited and more expensive. There is currently in the ministry a proposal from a group in Southern Province that want to establish a processing plant for milk products. This is being promoted and supported by the ministry, although it's not yet at the final stage. This is probably a positive response to probably encourage local production. Equally, there are some investors that have requested from the livestock aspect which areas they can invest. We've looked at issues like processing of leather products, processing of meat products, and all these things. Although these things are in their infancy, they are being promoted, they are being supported from the ministry, and I guess from not long from now, we may see some of these coming up as a local production of a number of things that we've not been doing locally. This is all effects of COVID. So basically, I think I would summarize my points just with that which I've said just now. I don't think there's much more that I can say. Thank you very much, moderator.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vincent Simongwe. Would like you to stick around because it is only your office and Mr. Bandas that is dealing with livestock. And there are a lot of questions related to that would like you to address the audience that are glued onto to their devices right now. So basically, that's a presentation from our panelists, and I'd like to thank you very much for all your input. We are going to turn our attention right now to the audience and address one or two questions or a number of questions for the next 30 minutes that are being directed at a lot of fisheries questions and aquaculture, as well as livestock and in particular poultry. Mr. Male, we haven't had you on for a few minutes, so I'll start with you. You obviously serve as an inspiration to a lot of startups and farmers that are getting into that business. We have a question here from Benny Mubanga from an organization called Maliben Enterprises. And the question is, simply put, what are the startup requirements for fish farming?
Oh, that's not a simple question. But I think I can start from the position which Dr. Kefi mentioned, that we as Zambians must realize the potential. We must realize the vast amount of resources that are available at our disposal. If you compare ourselves to many other countries, we do not have, the other countries hardly much, even a quarter of what we have in terms of resources. So I think first and foremost, we must be able to have the will to take opportunities, and instead of sitting back and just always complaining about things which other people don't even have. We have so much water here, meaning that the opportunities in aquaculture are vast. In fact, I just want to be a bit radical here and revisit the figures Dr. Kefi gave us. I believe that our deficit is more than what we are stating. Because if we take the 100,000 tons which are imported, in addition to that, there is even more tonnages which is brought in, smuggled in, not only for Zambia, but for the export market. If there is that amount of fish coming in, it means that it is part and parcel of the deficit basket. So you add another 100,000 in terms of the potential Zambia can produce to meet the demands, not only externally, but locally. But if you supply,
I'll come back to you with a lot of questions, but you brought up two very, very good points. And that is, number one, we have the resources already.
Yes.
And the deficit is more than has been stated, or at least in your opinion. I'd like to pose this question, the next question. We have a lot of questions. We'll come back to fisheries and deficits later on. I have another question directed at livestock. I think Dr. Fandamo or Mr. Vincent Simongwe, if you're still together. The question is coming from Mr. Walter Root, and I quote, "Why does the Ministry of Livestock continue to ban exports of stock feed? The maize crop is larger than the consumption, and stock feed has been value added. There is a very limited market for specialized stock feeds across our borders, and very small quantities of maize is included in these feeds." I think the bottom line there is, why does the Ministry of Livestock continue to ban the exports of stock feeds?
Yeah, I think probably I can come in, but I think Mr. Mlenga will also compliment from marketing. We currently, the ban on the stock feeds, it's actually regulated. I think, you know, the ministry just facilitates. Normally, we also consult the industry, the farmers union, when we take into consideration whether some things have to be banned or not, especially feed. We get also advice from the farmers union and other players in the industry. But as far as I know, there are still some other stock feeds which are being exported. I think the fish feed is actually still exported out of the country. Maize bran is still allowed. But when we feel the issues, maybe the industry we still need a lot of supply locally, I think that's when the movement bans are carried out. I think Mr. Mlenga will help me on that, because he's actually dealing with that on the marketing side. Mr. Mlenga,
thank you very much, Dr. Fandamo. The next question is maybe more directed at Dr. Kefi and Dr. Mlenga. It says the Ministry of Livestock and Fisheries has now effectively banned the import and transit of tilapia via Zambia to ensure that the aquaculture industry can grow. Very well done for this bold move. Why does this not follow on for poultry, beef? I think that's another question that I think you answered indirectly, Dr. Fandam, so I will not present it back to you. So, Dr. Kefi, what opportunities is government offering to farmers that want to get into aquaculture in terms of training and finances? From Chikondi Mbewe.
Oh, great, great question. I think government has done a lot in terms of putting in these opportunities. First of all, we are putting infrastructure in high potential zones so that the feed, let me say the inputs are easily, accessed. Secondly, government resourced found money to the tune of $50.89 million through the Zambia Aquaculture Enterprise Development Project, which I gladly coordinate. Now, within this amount of money for the project, we have 23.7 million US dollars, which is supposed to go towards, those private or farmers, those who want to go into aquaculture or related, activities within the value chain. As I mentioned that we're talking about the value chain. And within the 27.7 million, we have reinvested $6 million dedicated to the Zambian youths, those who want to go into aquaculture value chain. So meaning that these are the funds that government has provided for the Zambians to tap in. And remember, this money is just for Zambians who want to go into aquaculture.
How do the same Zambian youths and Zambians at large access these funds?
For your information, like for the youths,
Zambian youths.
Yeah, for the youths, actually, ECO is running right now. Hello, are you getting me?
Please go ahead.
Yeah, for the call for applications for the Zambian youths is on, and a lot of youths are now applying. So actually, the deadline is this coming Friday. This Friday that we close, so that we can select, Zambians, the youths who want to go into aquaculture value chain. We've already expended to the tune of 62 million kwacha towards the youths. I think on 30th May, our owner, the vice president, was launching the youth fund, and a lot of youths received money for them to go into aquaculture. So now, how are we? How are Zambians getting this money? We are fund manager. Working with them, so farmers or Zambians are applying through them, and there are a lot of Zambians who are now who are receiving the money at the moment. A total of 891 Zambians have already been approved, valued at 168 million kwacha. So, and they've started already receiving the funds so that they can start producing fish. Others will go into fish feed production, fingering production, and also marketing. As I mentioned, for us is a value chain. We want to develop the value chain, aquaculture value chain.
Thank you very much.
In terms of training, I think we have trained a lot of Zambians. They can attest to this. We have got an incubation program. We have trained more than 3,000 for small. This is short-term programs. The incubation program is a 3 months, initiative where we train Zambians, and then we link them to the fund that we have created. So we are not, once you are selected for the training, then we will link you to the fund. Because, and for the youths, 78% of these people that we are training are youths. And this is great because we know that now they're gaining the skills for them to produce fish.
Dr. Kefi, thank you very much. You did mention that there was a deadline of this Friday, which is the 14th, I believe, for the $6 million for the Zambian youth. And the other one that is 23.8 million, if I'm not mistaken, for aquaculture. If you'd like, there are a lot of questions with regards to financing. So that would help if you could maybe provide a deadline for that one as well. I think we've lost Dr. Kefi. Mr. Mala, I'm going to come back to you because you did add rather adding value to fish processing. And there's a question here coming from Hendrix Castillo. How can one add value in terms of fish processing other than just selling fish? Oh, it is muted.
I lost you.
There are a lot of opportunities. I think when we talk of value chain in the aquaculture sector, it probably talks to what type of opportunities are there to get engaged in the sector. It is not just the fixation on producing fish or producing tilapia. Even from that aspect, there's different species which can be produced in different parts of the country. This is why I think the program, which is rolling out by Department of Fisheries, creates those opportunities. So value chain, in terms of processing, I think that a lot of Zambians have taken up these opportunities by spicing by drying, by smoking, basically by processing. I think the more we produce, the more opportunities there will be for Zambia, for instance, to engage in even canning, or maybe making different types of recipes for the same type of fish.
I think we've lost Mr. Marley.
What are the needs in terms of export markets? What do the Chinese eat? What do the Congolese eat? What do Kenyans love? For instance, in DRC, one of the biggest fish in demand is catfish, which is milonge here. Okay? Now, that is an opportunity for us to even diversify and focus on producing milonge. Milonge is a good fish because it grows fast, it has a bigger biomass, so you can extract more meat for processing and doing different kinds of things. So we have to be creative and imaginative. You have to create your own niche in such a huge market, which will only satisfy Zambia, but also the neighboring country. This is why I talked about this huge deficit. The huge deficit is not only for Zambia, but what if we take the neighboring countries? How much can we export there? You'll find that it's probably another 150,000. Dr. Kefi mentioned about our water bodies here, the water resource. I think that the carrying capacity of our water bodies to produce 300,000 tons is there. It is just the will by Zambians to realize that this is an opportunity. It's not an opportunity to cry, but an opportunity to take advantage of. Start, come into aquaculture.
Thank you, Mr. Male, and for that encouragement to the youth out there. Mr. Banda, there's a question here for you from Tichawana Ndoreka, who is asking, in poultry production, Mr. Banda, are you able to provide some statistics on demand, shortfall, and market capacity? Just to remind you, we only have 10 minutes left, so if we can keep our answers very quick.
Right. I will speak from the broiler side of the business and also the layer side of the business. I did see that question and I provided an answer online, but I'll give rough estimates. We currently, as a country, produce about 60 million broiler beds and 12 million layer beds. And we estimate that there will be about 4 to 5 million village chicken type of beds. As capacity is estimated to be sitting around about 65 million chicks in total per year, that
Mr. Banda, I'm going to ask you to repeat if you can hear me.
However, our per capita consumption is sitting somewhere around about 5.5%.
Mr. Banda, I think you are sharing some very important statistics, but we were not able to get you. Are you able to repeat your answer quickly?
Yeah, I'll go roughly through them again. Are you able to hear me now?
Yes, we can get you clearly right now. Hopefully you can get through it quickly as well.
Yeah, I said roughly broiler chicks per annum on the Zambian side is about 60 million and 12 million layers, and estimated 4.4 to 5 million village chicken type of chickens. The capacity for the country is sitting somewhere around about 65 million. I did provide the statistics on the response to the questions on the Q&A.
Okay, so the deficit is of how much, in case I missed something there?
We currently sitting on the deficit of about 50,000 chicks per week. And that is as a result of the fact that when COVID came into play, most farmers actually reduced their production because of inability to meet the cost of production.
Okay, thank you very much. Another question here. I think this one can be directed to Dr. Kefi. And I would like to say, actually, this one has been addressed by Dr. Kefi. But maybe from the panel at large, the arresting of smuggling of goods. This is coming from Mr. Mbo Mumba. Arresting of smuggling of goods out of Zambia has been heightened over the last quarter, with reports on the main news media of impounded trucks, particularly maize. Is there any surveillance beyond Kasumbalesa, and how is that affecting businesses like Hybrid and Yalelo in terms of smuggled goods? If you can address it quickly, maybe from your end, whilst we still have a good connection with you.
Who, with me?
Mr. Banda, are you there? Mr. Male, you may go on quickly if you could hear the question regarding smuggling of goods, how that is affecting business and the industry at large.
Well, I think it affects the revenue, the country's revenues in terms of taxes and so on, because if the goods are smuggled, we assume that they've already been bought from us. So, but I think importantly, it's a question of how do we rationally approach and take advantage of the demand which leads to smuggling of goods. It's important, I think, to set up good infrastructure along the border posts like Kasumbalesa. We do have cold storage facilities there. But for Zambians, I'm looking at opportunities. For Zambians, you go there and put up your own shops, put up your own storage facilities so that you mitigate against the smuggling by formalizing the trade there. And this is also relating to what has recently happened in terms of the cooperative ZCF, where now I'm speaking as ZDA chairman, where we brought ZCF to fill in the gap of the so-called SPAR and other supermarket chains who want to pull out. This is a great opportunity for us to revive the COP stores. This is a great opportunity for ZCF, for instance, to put up chain shops along the copper belt, along the border posts, and so that trade can be carried out there. That's how you mitigate smuggling, by turning that negative into an opportunity. Facilitate trade.
Thank you,
Facilitate
Mr.
trade.
Thank you, Mr. Male. Always so insightful. I'm going to give everyone exactly 30 seconds to say their last words, but I would also like to remind our audience that in the build-up to Meet the Farmers Virtual Summit at the end of the month, from the 25th to the 27th of August, we're going to be having more of these discussions and form of communication where we can have your input, we can have experts on the panel. The next one is actually this Friday, which is access to finance. A lot of questions coming in with regards to that. So I encourage everyone in the audience to look out in your chat. We are sharing the link for Meet the Farmers Virtual Summit, and it is absolutely free to attend, where you'll be able to meet your suppliers as well as your buyers and have access to some of your markets. We'll start with a farewell little statement from Dr. Fandamo. Your last words, please, just in 30 seconds. Dr. Van Dam, sorry, we can't get you. You have to unmute. There should be a message.
Sorry. Yeah, I was saying thank you very much for inviting us to this important meeting, and I was just saying that maybe I've answered a few questions which came as a chat, some extra questions, where some participants were asking on the issues of promoting local production of animal vaccines, and also there were some questions on the strategies in the control of some diseases. I think I've managed to just answer them online. Yeah, I think.
Thank you very much.
Not much to say. I think maybe my colleague can say something.
Thank you, Mr. Silongwe, for your input as well. We look forward to having you on board at the end of the month for the bigger event.
Okay, thank you very much. My last words are to say, in this period, we see a lot of need to rely on ourselves in terms of, especially, livestock. The cost for livestock is mostly taken by feed. And we have a lot of feed that goes to waste. Crop byproducts, grain byproducts, some of the grass, the natural grass can be turned into hay. A lot of, what we import can actually be cut down by utilizing the local resources. I would like also to encourage, the farming stakeholders to ensure that, we learn how to mix, like feeds locally. We have a lot of money that goes to imported feed. I think those are some of the things that I can say. And also the water resources we have in our country, we have not so much utilized. There's a lot of potential we can use just from what we have locally. Thank you very much.
Mr. Silongwe. Thank you very much. Panelists, please do check in your Q&As. There are a lot of questions that haven't been answered. If you can just take a few minutes just to answer them. If you just click at the bottom of your screen there, where it says Q&A, there are questions that are coming in from the audience that we haven't had time to address. Dr. Kefi, your last few words.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to interact with the Zambians and any other participant. What I can simply say is that during this COVID time, I think nutrition becomes becomes cardinal. So we need to make sure that we have nutritious, foods, and one of the best, item in this case is fish, because of which, balanced amino acid. And so we need to protect Zambians from this disease by making sure that we consume a lot of fish. How we're going to consume more fish is for us to produce more fish. So we'll continue interacting. I've seen a lot of questions here regarding the youths, who want to apply. Please go to the Ministry of Fisheries and Livestock website and the Citizen Economic Empowerment Commission website. Download the form and apply in the district where you are. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kefi. Please keep checking those messages before you go, so maybe you can inspire one or two more people before you go. Mr. Mwale, you're next.
Thank you very much. I think I can start off by saying that in adversity, there are opportunities. So post-COVID presents to us a lot of opportunities for us to reset the button, to restart, to re-strategize. And I think that in the aquaculture sector, which is the industry to go to, I'm saying that some of the strategies and efforts that we are going to apply during COVID are that, one, we take advantage of COVID to increase production in aquaculture. The attractive increase in the product price can still cater for input costs, so we can take advantage of that. We take advantage of the decree by the president to stop imports and promote local industry, so we'll bridge the gap through that. Take advantage of Dr. Kefi, the new statutory instrument that has removed duty on aquaculture requisites, which is a fantastic development. And finally, we take advantage of climate smart aquaculture innovations so that we can produce more fish to feed Zambians who should be more healthy than they are now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mwale. And Mr. Banda?
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, and thank you very much to everybody who took time to listen to us speak. I would like to reiterate what Mr. Mwale has said, that imports export our jobs, regardless of wherever you are. If we are importing things that we have locally in the country, we are exporting our own livelihood and we are exporting our jobs. So COVID, yes, as bad as it would be, it presents us an opportunity that we look after ourselves, and we can certainly look after ourselves, especially on the feed sides. The only thing that we do not have is premixes, which is vitamins and minerals, which I think someone someday will invest into production of premixes locally, then everything can be produced locally. Thank you very much to you all.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. It's been insightful, it's been educative, and I would like to thank you on behalf of the Meet the Farmers team. I would like to thank you on behalf of the Ministry of Livestock and Fisheries. I was actually corrected today. It's Ministry of Fisheries and Livestock, as well
You will
as
be promoted.
as well as the Ministry of Agriculture, who we are partnering with at the end of the month to bring together the Meet the Farmers Virtual Summit, a virtual conference as well as exhibition, where we hope you, the farmers, will be able to connect with your suppliers and links with your buyers, as well as access to markets. And it's free for everyone to attend. Please log on to meetthefarmerszm.org. The link is in the chat. You can click on it right now and register right away. Gentlemen, thank you very much. We look forward to engaging you more in weeks to come, and God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Gefi. Dr.
I'm getting you. Yes, yes.
Ulupia lulikwisa lwa daskas. Tishankas.
We need to have a virtual meeting.
No, you are killing the organization. Why?
When can we have the meeting? When can we have the meeting?
I hope the listeners are still tuned in here so that you know you are killing.
When can we meet?
Virtual meeting.
Can we set the meeting next week?
What meeting? Just write the